Hello and welcome to the video series, the next installment in the series about my journey to faith. If you remember in the last video, I shared about how my wife and we met. We first started dating through our connections at church. She started sharing about how she works for this organization called the South Asian Friendship Center, and how I learned about how the center was using language and music in order to reach people, to share about the life of Lord Jesus and to share about the stories of the Bible in a way that met people where their cultural heart was, where their cultural language was. And to me that was very winsome and actually aligned with where I felt like God was leading me in vocation. So I was working at a nonprofit at that time. I was not working at Starbucks anymore. I'd actually worked at Starbucks and then the Chicago Architecture Foundation, and then after that I worked for a nonprofit called the Fellowship, which was downtown, and didn't really have it on my radar that I was going to be entering ministry full-time. I was very content with the job that I had, doing fundraising and things like that for this nonprofit. And my wife and she was volunteering for the South Asian Friendship Center. I was volunteering for the South Asian Friendship Center, and anything beyond that was really not within our parameters at that time. But again, remember that prayer, I'm a rudderless ship, Lord Jesus, wherever the winds and the sea take me, that's where I'm going to go. So after a couple years of volunteering for the South Asian Friendship Center, the leadership actually asked me to become the executive director of the center. Now they asked me about a week, or 2 weeks actually, 2 weeks before my wife and I got married. And they were like, hey, do you mind getting back to us in maybe a week or so? And of course, Beth and I connected, and first of all, it was a surprise to her just as much as it was a surprise for me. So she and I connected, and we came back to leadership, and we said like, hey, look, like we have a marriage that we're doing in a couple weeks. We have a honeymoon that we're going on. Can we maybe wait till after we get back from the honeymoon to further discuss this? And Beth and I went on the honeymoon, and so we got married, we went on the honeymoon. We started to pray during our honeymoon about whether or not this is where God was calling both of us as a couple. So not just Eric as executive director, but both of us, both Beth and I as a couple. Is this where God is leading both of us? Now that we're married, we're a team together, right? And we came to the conclusion during our honeymoon that yes, this is where God is leading us. So we came out of the honeymoon and met with the leadership and essentially said, yes, we're all in. We're going to accept the role, or Eric's going to accept the role of executive director. Beth was the director of our youth ministry program at the time. So essentially we were just agreeing to come on together full time at the ministry. And it was not easy, certainly not easy to make a large decision like that, or at least it seems like it's not that easy. But for me, thinking back about how God has worked in my life through family, worked in my life through His Word, worked in my life through going through a really hard emotional divorce, through the finances of that, and then seeing how He's provided every way necessary for each of those things, how He's become that foundation in my life. When it came down to, do you want to give up this other thing to take on a full-time ministerial role? Is that something that you're able and willing to do? There's a prophet in the Bible, his name's Jonah. And what I like to tell people is, Jonah was called by God to do something very difficult. And instead of stepping out in faith and pursuing that vocation that God had for him, he ran the other way instead. If you know the story of Jonah, you know that Jonah runs away. He gets on a ship. The ship goes into massive storms. Jonah's thrown off the ship eventually, and God appoints a great fish to swallow Jonah. And Jonah's in the belly of the fish for 3 days, and then is finally spit up on the sea. And one of the things I tell people is, I didn't want to be like Jonah. So God presents this opportunity. It's time to step out in faith and to walk forward in that vocation. I believe that no matter what, God always gets His man or His woman. But he can either get us the easy way, where we're stepping out in faith, or the hard way, in which case for Jonah is running away and getting tossed out of a boat and swallowed by a great appointed fish and spit up on the sea. And so I think it's better for us when we hear God's call in our life to step forward in faith. Again, there's that light one at a time in front of us. Step forward to the next light. So with that, I'll continue and finish my journey of faith next week. Thank you so much for listening. God bless.